The scream stopped the entire ballroom. For one terrible second, nobody moved. The orchestra went silent. Forks froze halfway to mouths, and hundreds of eyes turned toward the young waitress kneeling on the marble floor, her white uniform soaked in steaming coffee. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against her burning cheek, tears mixing with the dark liquid dripping from her hair. Across from her stood the billionaire CEO's wife, still holding the empty porcelain cup. And then the elevator doors opened. The CEO himself walked in. Before we continue, if stories about second chances, kindness, and unexpected justice touch your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Bright Hearts for more emotional stories about second chances. Your support helps these stories reach people who need them. The woman on the floor was named Emma Carter. She was 24 years old, worked double shifts at the Grand Aurelia Hotel, and had learned a long time ago that life rarely gave people what they deserved. Her mother had passed away when Emma was 19, leaving behind hospital bills and a younger brother who depended on her. Emma had put college on hold, taken every shift she could get, and quietly carried a dream of becoming a nurse someday. She wasn't ashamed of working as a waitress. What hurt was how often wealthy people looked through her, as if she were part of the furniture. That evening, the hotel was hosting an extravagant charity gala for the city's richest families. Crystal chandeliers glittered above hundreds of guests. Women wore gowns that cost more than Emma's yearly salary, while men in tailored suits casually discussed investments worth millions. At the center of it all was Victoria Sterling, the glamorous wife of billionaire CEO Daniel Sterling. Victoria was famous for her beauty, her designer clothes, and her icy temper. She had arrived wearing a brilliant red dress, turning heads the moment she entered the ballroom. Emma had been assigned to Victoria's table. She knew to be careful. Earlier that evening, Emma had noticed an elderly guest struggling to reach his medicine from inside his jacket. Without hesitation, she had helped him and brought him a glass of water. Later, she had quietly covered a spilled drink before another waiter could be blamed for it. She was exhausted, but she kept smiling because that was what her mother had taught her. Never let a difficult day turn you into a difficult person. Then everything changed. Victoria had ordered coffee, and Emma carefully carried the cup across the crowded ballroom. A man suddenly stepped backward without looking, nearly colliding with her. Emma twisted her body to protect the tray, managing to keep every glass from falling. But a few drops of coffee spilled onto the edge of Victoria's tablecloth. Emma immediately apologized and reached for a napkin. Victoria stood. Her expression was no longer annoyed. It was furious. She accused Emma of deliberately ruining her dress, even though not a single drop had touched it. Emma tried to explain what had happened, but Victoria's voice rose above the music. Guests began turning around. Someone whispered that the waitress was incompetent. Another person laughed nervously. Emma apologized again. That should have been the end of it. Instead, Victoria grabbed the coffee cup. Before Emma could react, the hot coffee flew through the air. It struck Emma across the face, neck, and chest. The cup crashed against the floor. Emma stumbled backward, then collapsed to her knees. A gasp swept through the ballroom. For a moment, Victoria looked almost satisfied. She told Emma that people like her needed to learn their place. The words hurt even more than the burning skin. Emma lowered her head, fighting desperately not to cry in front of everyone. Then a voice came from behind the crowd. It was calm. Too calm. Daniel Sterling had entered the ballroom. The billionaire CEO had just returned from an emergency business trip. He was still wearing his dark blue suit, and his expression changed instantly when he saw the woman kneeling on the floor. He didn't look at his wife. He looked at Emma. He saw the burns beginning to redden her skin. He saw her shaking hands. He saw the broken cup beside her. And then he noticed something else. Emma was trying to hide her tears because she was more worried about embarrassing herself than about the pain. Daniel walked toward her. Every step seemed to echo through the silent room. He crouched beside Emma and asked if she could breathe properly. Emma nodded, though her voice was barely audible. Daniel immediately called for medical assistance and told one of the staff members to bring cold water and first aid supplies. Only then did he turn toward Victoria. The woman he had married 8 years earlier suddenly looked uncertain. She tried to explain that Emma had been careless, that the waitress had ruined the evening, that she had only reacted because she was angry. Daniel listened without interrupting. Then he looked around the ballroom at the hundreds of people watching. His voice was quiet when he said that wealth could buy expensive clothes, beautiful homes, and luxurious parties, but it could never buy the right to humiliate another human being. The room became completely silent. Daniel ordered the hotel's general manager to preserve the security footage and document everything that had happened. He made it clear that Emma would receive medical treatment at the hotel's expense, regardless of what the investigation revealed. Victoria stared at him as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. But Daniel wasn't finished. He asked Emma whether she wanted to continue working that evening. Emma shook her head. He told her she didn't have to. Then, to everyone's surprise, he asked whether she wanted to take paid leave until her injuries healed. Emma finally looked up. She expected pity. Instead, she saw something she hadn't seen from a wealthy person in years. Respect. The next morning, Daniel visited the hotel before sunrise. He found Emma sitting alone in a small employee break room, holding a letter she had written to the manager. She intended to resign. She believed the incident had made her a liability. Daniel sat across from her and told her that she wasn't the problem. Emma started crying. She confessed that she had spent years believing people with money could destroy someone like her without consequence. She said she was tired of being invisible. Daniel admitted that he had spent years surrounded by people who told him what he wanted to hear. He realized that somewhere along the way, he had stopped noticing the people who served him, cleaned his offices, delivered his food, and kept his businesses running. He offered Emma something unexpected. Not charity. A scholarship. Daniel had recently established a foundation supporting workers who had been forced to abandon their education because of family hardship. After learning about Emma's dream of becoming a nurse, he offered to pay her tuition, books, and living expenses while she studied. Emma refused at first. She said she didn't want anyone's pity. Daniel smiled gently and told her that a second chance wasn't pity. Sometimes, it was simply someone opening a door that life had unfairly closed. Months passed. Emma left the hotel and entered nursing school. She worked hard. She studied late into the night, remembering every sacrifice her mother had made for her. Whenever she felt like quitting, she remembered the night in the ballroom. Not the coffee, not the humiliation, but the moment someone finally saw her. Victoria's life changed too. The incident had become public, and her reputation collapsed. Daniel eventually separated from her. But instead of allowing anger to consume him, he made sure she received counseling. He understood that accountability mattered, but so did the possibility that even broken people could choose to change. A year later, Emma returned to the Grand Aurelia Hotel. Not as a waitress. She returned wearing a nursing uniform. The hotel was hosting a charity event for Daniel's foundation, and Emma had been invited to speak about the scholarship program. Standing beneath the same chandeliers where she had once knelt in humiliation, she looked across the ballroom and realized how much her life had changed. She spoke about her mother. She spoke about poverty, dignity, kindness, and the danger of judging people by their uniforms. Then she said something that made the room fall silent. She said that sometimes the worst moment of your life isn't the ending of your story. Sometimes it is the moment your story finally begins. The applause that followed was thunderous. Daniel stood in the front row, smiling with tears in his eyes. And Emma smiled too. Because she had finally learned something her mother had tried to teach her all those years ago. A person's worth is never determined by how the world treats them. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it, and subscribe to Bright Hearts. You never know who might need to hear a story about dignity, kindness, and second chances today. And before you go, comment second chances below if you believe one act of kindness can change someone's entire life. Because sometimes, all a hurting person needs is one person willing to see them, not as a servant, not as a mistake, not as someone beneath them, but simply as another human being deserving of respect. And sometimes, that one moment of being seen is enough to change everything.